The morning fog rolled across the training grounds at Naval Station Great Lakes like a thick gray blanket. Staff Sergeant Maya Chen adjusted her plain black training uniform and checked her watch. 5:30 in the morning, and she was exactly where she wanted to be, invisible among the new recruits. Maya had been assigned to observe the latest batch of Navy personnel going through advanced combat training. Her job was simple: watch, take notes, and report back to her commanding officer about the quality of instruction and trainee progress. What made this assignment special was that nobody knew who she really was. To everyone else, she was just another trainee. A small woman, maybe 5'4", with shoulder-length black hair pulled back in a regulation ponytail. She looked young, maybe 25, and her quiet demeanor made her blend into the background perfectly. The other recruits barely noticed her during the first week of training. That was exactly how Maya wanted it. The training facility buzzed with activity as 60 recruits prepared for their morning combat exercises. Maya walked quietly toward the equipment shed, her soft footsteps making no sound on the concrete floor. She had learned long ago how to move without drawing attention. "Hey, you!" The voice came from behind her. Maya turned slowly, already recognizing the tone. 3 male recruits approached her with the kind of swagger that meant trouble. She had been watching them all week. The leader was Jake Morrison, a 6'2" former college football player from Texas. His muscles bulged under his training shirt, and he carried himself like someone who had never lost a fight. Behind him walked Tony Ricci, shorter but stocky, with thick arms covered in tattoos. The third was Brad Coleman, tall and lean, with the kind of cruel smile that suggested he enjoyed making others uncomfortable. "Yeah, you," Jake repeated, stopping just a little too close to Maya. "We need to talk." Maya set down the equipment bag she had been carrying and turned to face them fully. Her expression remained calm and neutral. "About what?" "About you messing with our training scores," Tony said, crossing his arms. His New Jersey accent made every word sound like an accusation. "Somehow you keep beating our times in the obstacle course." "And our shooting scores," Brad added, his voice carrying a hint of menace. "A little thing like you shouldn't be outperforming men who've been training for months." Maya looked at each of them in turn. She had indeed been performing well in training, but she had been careful to keep her scores good without being exceptional. Apparently, even that was too much for these 3. "Maybe you need to train harder," she said simply. Jake's face darkened. "Are you smart-mouthing me?" "I'm suggesting that if you're concerned about your performance, you should focus on improving it instead of complaining about mine." The equipment shed was located away from the main training areas. At this early hour, with most recruits still getting ready in the barracks, the 3 men had deliberately chosen a time and place where they wouldn't be observed. "Listen here, little girl," Jake said, stepping even closer. "I don't know what kind of special treatment you're getting, but it ends now. Women like you don't belong in combat training." "Women like me?" Maya asked, her voice still calm. "Yeah," Tony joined in. "Small, weak, probably got here because of some diversity program. You're going to get real soldiers killed when you can't keep up in the field." Brad circled around behind her as his friends continued talking. Maya was aware of his movement, but didn't turn to follow him. She had dealt with men like these before. "So here's what's going to happen," Jake continued. "You're going to start failing some of these tests. Make yourself look more realistic. Stop making us look bad." "And if I don't?" Maya asked. "Then we'll have to convince you," Brad said from behind her. Maya could smell his cologne as he moved closer. These men thought they had her cornered and helpless. They had chosen their moment carefully, making sure no instructors were around to witness whatever they planned to do. "You know what I think?" Jake said, reaching out as if to grab her shoulder. "I think you need to learn your place." Maya moved. Her right hand intercepted Jake's reaching arm, her fingers wrapping around his wrist like a steel trap. Before he could react, She twisted his arm down and back while stepping to the side. The joint lock sent immediate pain shooting through his shoulder and elbow. "What the hell?" he started to say, but Maya cut him off by applying more pressure. The big man found himself bent forward awkwardly, unable to move without causing himself more pain. Tony rushed forward to help his friend, but Maya was ready. Still maintaining her grip on Jake's wrist, she snapped her left leg up in a precise side kick that caught Tony in the solar plexus. The stocky man doubled over, gasping for air. Brad tried to grab her from behind, but Maya had been tracking his position the entire time. She released Jake's wrist and spun around, her elbow striking Brad in the ribs with surgical precision. The impact drove the air from his lungs and sent him stumbling backward. Jake straightened up, rubbing his wrist and staring at her in shock. "How did you—" "Shh," Maya said quietly, holding up one finger. "You wanted to convince me of something. I'm listening." The three men regrouped, spreading out around her in a triangle formation. They were no longer treating this as intimidation. Now they were genuinely trying to overpower her. "All at once," Jake said through gritted teeth. "Take her down." They attacked simultaneously from 3 directions. Maya dropped low and swept her leg in a wide arc, catching Jake behind the knee and sending him crashing to the concrete. As Tony reached for her, she grabbed his wrist and used his own momentum to throw him over her hip. The jiu-jitsu throw sent him flying into a stack of equipment boxes. Brad swung a wild punch at her head, but Maya slipped under it and drove her fist into his stomach. When he doubled over, she grabbed the back of his neck and brought her knee up to meet his face. The impact sent him sprawling backward. Jake scrambled back to his feet, his face red with anger and embarrassment. "You little—" He charged at her like a football player going for a tackle. Maya waited until the last second, then stepped aside and grabbed his training shirt. Using his own momentum against him, she guided him headfirst into the concrete wall of the equipment shed. Jake slumped to the ground, dazed but not seriously hurt. Tony had recovered enough to try again. He pulled a training knife from his belt, a rubber replica they used for practice exercises. "Let's see how tough you are against a blade." Maya looked at the rubber knife and almost smiled. "Really?" Tony thrust the training knife toward her stomach. Maya deflected the attack with her forearm while simultaneously grabbing his wrist. She twisted his arm around and applied pressure to his elbow joint until he dropped the rubber weapon. "Knife disarmament," she said conversationally, as if she were teaching a class. Lesson 1. Control the weapon hand. Lesson 2. Apply joint pressure until compliance. Tony tried to break free, but Maya's grip was unbreakable. She maintained the hold while looking at the other 2 men. "Anyone else want to continue this discussion?" Brad was holding his nose, which was bleeding from her knee strike. Jake was leaning against the wall, trying to clear his head. Neither of them seemed eager to resume fighting. Maya released Tony's arm and stepped back. "I'm going to give you 3 some advice," she said. "Next time you want to intimidate someone, make sure you know who you're dealing with first." "What are you?" Jake asked, his voice shaky. "Just another trainee," Maya replied. "One who happens to have some experience." "Experience with what?" Brad demanded. Maya picked up the rubber training knife and examined it. "How long have you 3 been in training?" 6 months, Tony said reluctantly. "And before that?" "College," Jake admitted. "Football scholarship." "Construction work," said Tony. "Sales," Brad muttered. Maya nodded. "I spent 8 years in the Marines before joining the Navy. 2 deployments in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. I've been in more real fights than you 3 have had hot meals." She handed the rubber knife back to Tony. "But you didn't know that when you decided to corner me. You just saw a small woman and assumed she would be easy to push around." The 3 men looked at each other uncertainly. The dynamic had shifted completely. The woman they had tried to intimidate was now clearly the one in control. "Are you going to report this?" Brad asked. Maya considered the question. "That depends." Are you going to continue questioning my right to be here? Are you going to keep suggesting that I don't belong in combat training? No, Jake said quickly. No, ma'am. I'm not an officer, Maya pointed out. You don't need to call me ma'am. What should we call you? Tony asked. You can call me Maya, and you can remember that every person in this training program earned their place here. Whether they're male or female, big or small, they've met the same standards you have. She shouldered her equipment bag and prepared to leave. The next time you see someone outperforming you, instead of looking for excuses, try asking them for advice. You might learn something. Wait, Jake called out as she turned to go. How did you move like that? I mean, I'm twice your size. Maya paused at the door of the equipment shed. Size doesn't matter as much as you think. Speed, technique, and training matter more. I've been studying martial arts since I was 12. Jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, some boxing. When you know what you're doing, you don't need to be big. Could you teach us? Brad asked, unexpectedly. Maya looked back at him with surprise. Of all the reactions she might have expected, that wasn't one of them. Why would you want me to teach you? Because, Brad said, touching his swollen nose gingerly, I never want to feel this helpless again. If there are techniques that can make someone your size that effective, I want to know them. Tony nodded agreement. I've been lifting weights for 10 years, but all that muscle didn't help me at all just now. Jake was still rubbing his shoulder where Maya had applied the joint lock. I thought strength was everything, but you controlled me like I was a child. Maya studied their faces, looking for signs of deception or wounded pride that might turn into revenge later. But what she saw was genuine curiosity and perhaps the beginnings of respect. There are evening training sessions available, she said finally. Hand-to-hand combat instruction. If you're serious about learning, you could sign up. Will you be there? Jake asked. Sometimes. Maya opened the door to leave, then looked back one more time. But first, you three need to prove you can handle being taught by a woman. Because the instructor for those evening sessions is also female. She left them standing in the equipment shed, three humbled men reconsidering everything they thought they knew about combat training. As Maya walked back toward the main training area, she reflected on the encounter. She had been sent here to observe and report on the training program's effectiveness. What she had discovered was that some recruits needed more than just physical conditioning and weapons training. They needed their attitudes adjusted. The morning sun was burning off the fog, and other recruits were beginning to emerge from the barracks. Maya blended back into the crowd, once again just another trainee preparing for the day's exercises. But word would spread quickly about what had happened in the equipment shed. By evening, everyone in the training program would know that the quiet woman who kept to herself had taken down 3 men without breaking a sweat. Maya smiled slightly as she thought about how that news would change the dynamics of the training program. Sometimes the best lessons came from unexpected teachers. The day's official training was about to begin, and Maya had her real job to get back to. She was here to evaluate the program's strengths and weaknesses, to identify areas for improvement. After this morning's encounter, she already had several observations to report. The physical training was adequate, but the program needed better screening for attitude problems. Too many recruits were entering advanced training with preconceptions about women in combat roles. That was something that could be fixed with proper instruction and leadership. Maya had just provided a small demonstration of what that instruction might look like. As she joined the other recruits gathering for morning exercises, Maya noticed Jake, Tony, and Brad emerging from the equipment shed. They looked subdued, but not angry. That was a good sign. Change had to start somewhere. Today, it had started with 3 recruits learning that their assumptions about women in combat were dangerously wrong. Maya picked up her training rifle and fell into formation with the others. She had work to do, both as an observer and as an unexpected teacher. The day was just getting started. By lunchtime, word had spread through the training barracks like wildfire. Jake Morrison sat at his table, mechanically eating his sandwich while trying to ignore the stares and whispered conversations happening around him. Every few minutes, another recruit would approach their table with questions. "Is it true she threw you into a wall?" asked Peters, a skinny kid from Ohio. "Is it true she knows Navy SEAL techniques?" whispered Rodriguez. "Did she really take on all three of you at once?" came from Williams. Tony Ricci pushed his tray away, having lost his appetite completely. His ribs still ached where Maya's elbow had connected, and his pride hurt even more. "Can we just eat in peace?" he grumbled. Brad Coleman sat with an ice pack pressed to his swollen nose. He had been the most vocal of the three about women not belonging in combat training, and now everyone knew a woman had put him on his back in less than 5 seconds. "There she is," Jake said quietly. Maya Chen walked through the cafeteria line, her movements smooth and unhurried. She selected her food carefully, paid, and began looking for an empty table. The entire cafeteria seemed to quiet down as she moved through the room. She found a spot at a small table near the windows and sat down alone, opening a book while she ate. To anyone watching, she appeared completely unbothered by the attention she was receiving. "She's reading The Art of War," observed Peterson, a recruit who had been trying to get a better look at Maya's book. "Of course she is," muttered Brad. Several tables away, Maya was actually reading a technical manual about Navy communications equipment, but she had placed the Sun Tzu book on top as a deliberate misdirection. Part of her assignment involved psychological evaluation of the recruits, and she was curious to see how they would react to certain stimuli. The reaction was immediate and predictable. Recruits began whispering about ancient Chinese military strategy and warrior philosophy. Some looked impressed. Others seemed intimidated. A few appeared skeptical. Maya made mental notes for her report while continuing to eat her lunch. "We need to find out who she really is," Jake said to his friends. "What do you mean?" Tony asked. "I mean, normal recruits don't move like that. Normal people don't have that kind of training. She said she was a Marine, but there's more to it." Brad leaned forward despite his swollen nose. "You think she's lying about her background?" "I think she's not telling us everything," Jake replied. "Did you see how calm she was? Even when we surrounded her, her heart rate probably didn't change. That's not normal soldier training, that's something else." Tony nodded slowly. "She knew exactly how to hurt us without causing permanent damage. Every strike was precise, controlled, like she'd done it 1,000 times before." "So what do we do about it?" Brad asked. "We find out the truth," Jake said. "If she's some kind of special forces operator, we deserve to know. And if she's here to test us or evaluate us, we definitely deserve to know." That afternoon, the three men began their investigation. They started with the training records office, hoping to find personnel files that might reveal more about Maya's background. Petty Officer Martinez ran the records department, a friendly woman in her 40s who had been at the base for over a decade. She knew every recruit and instructor by name. "Maya Chen?" she repeated when Jake asked about their fellow trainee. "Nice girl, very quiet." "Why do you ask?" "We're just curious about her military background," Tony said carefully. "She mentioned serving in the Marines." Martinez consulted her computer screen, clicking through several files. "Says here she completed 8 years in the Marines, just like she told you. 2 Purple Hearts, Bronze Star, Combat Action Ribbon, served in Afghanistan and Iraq." "Anything else?" Brad pressed. Martinez frowned slightly. "Her file seems limited. Usually we have more detailed information about previous assignments, training schools attended, things like that. Hers just lists basic information." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "Could mean a few things. Maybe her records are classified. Maybe she served in a capacity that requires certain information to be restricted. Or maybe someone just did a poor job of filing paperwork." The three men exchanged glances. A classified background would explain Maya's unusual skill set. "Thanks, Martinez," Jake said. "We appreciate the help." As they left the records office, Tony voiced what they were all thinking. Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star. That's serious combat experience. "And if her records are classified," Brad added, "that means she wasn't just a regular Marine. She was something special." Their next stop was the base library, where they hoped to research military special operations units. If Maya had served in classified roles, they might be able to piece together her background from publicly available information. Jake pulled several books about Marine special operations from the shelves while Tony searched online databases. Brad, despite his injured nose, took notes on everything they found. "Look at this," Tony said, pointing at his computer screen. "Marine Special Operations Command was established in 2006. They handle direct action, special reconnaissance, and counterterrorism operations." "Critical Skills Operators," Jake read from one of his books. "These Marines receive extensive training in advanced combat techniques, languages, cultural studies, and specialized weapon systems." "That would explain the hand-to-hand combat skills," Brad said. "But what about the precision? The way she controlled every movement?" Jake continued reading. "It says here that CSOs often cross-train with other special operations units. Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, even foreign military units." So she could have SEAL training even though she was a Marine, Tony realized. "Or training from units we've never even heard of," Brad added. They spent 2 hours in the library learning about special operations selection processes, training programs, and operational capabilities. The more they read, the more they realize they had made a serious mistake that morning. "We tried to intimidate someone who could probably kill all 3 of us with her bare hands," Tony said quietly. "And she chose not to," Jake added. "She could have seriously hurt us, but she just demonstrated her point." Brad touched his nose gingerly. "She did hurt me." "Not really," Jake corrected. "A broken nose would have been nothing to someone with her training. You've got some swelling and bruising." She was being gentle. That evening, they attended the optional hand-to-hand combat training session Maya had mentioned. The class was held in a large gymnasium with about 20 recruits in attendance. The instructor was exactly who Maya had described, a woman. Gunnery Sergeant Lisa Park was a compact, muscular Korean-American woman in her early 30s. She wore the standard Marine instructor uniform and moved with the same fluid confidence they had observed in Maya. "Tonight we'll be covering basic grappling techniques," Gunny Park announced to the class. "Partner up and we'll start with simple takedowns." Jake found himself paired with Rodriguez, while Tony worked with Peterson. Brad was excused from full participation due to his injured nose, but he stayed to observe. As the class progressed, Jake began to recognize some of the techniques Maya had used against them. The joint locks, the throws, the precise strikes. They were all variations of what Gunny Park was teaching. "Sergeant Park," Jake called out during a break, "how long does it take to master these techniques?" "Depends on the person and how much they practice," she replied. "Basic proficiency, maybe 6 months of regular training. Real competency, a couple of years. Mastery," she smiled. "That's a lifetime pursuit." "What about someone who could take down 3 opponents simultaneously?" Tony asked. Gunny Park's expression became more serious. "That level of skill suggests extensive training and real-world experience. We're talking about someone who's been in actual combat situations where these techniques meant the difference between life and death." "Have you met anyone with that kind of ability?" Brad asked from his position on the bench. "A few," she admitted. "Usually special operations personnel, people who've spent years perfecting their craft under the most demanding conditions imaginable." After the training session ended, the 3 men walked back to the barracks in thoughtful silence. Their investigation had revealed more questions than answers, but one thing was becoming clear. Maya Chen was not an ordinary recruit. "We owe her an apology," Jake said finally. More than an apology, Tony agreed. We owe her our respect. The question is, Brad said, why is someone with her background here in basic training with us? Jake had been wondering the same thing. Maybe she's not really a recruit at all. The next morning brought a new development. During their usual pre-breakfast formation, their commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Hayes, made an unexpected announcement. Effective immediately, this training company will be participating in a comprehensive program evaluation, he said. A specialist from Naval Special Warfare Command will be observing our training exercises and procedures over the next 2 weeks. Jake felt his stomach drop. He looked at Tony and Brad, seeing the same realization dawning on their faces. The evaluator has been embedded with your training class for the past week, Hayes continued. This person has been observing your performance, leadership potential, and overall readiness for advanced training. Maya stood in formation about 10 people down from Jake, her expression unchanged. But now he understood why she had seemed so calm during their confrontation. She hadn't just been defending herself. She had been evaluating their character under pressure. At the conclusion of this evaluation period, Hayes said, recommendations will be made regarding each recruit's suitability for continued advanced training. Some of you may be selected for additional special operations screening. Others may be recommended for different career paths. The formation was dismissed, but Jake couldn't move. The implications were staggering. Maya wasn't just a fellow recruit with an impressive military background. She was an active-duty special operations professional evaluating them for potential selection into elite units. And their first encounter with her had been an attempt at intimidation and assault. We are so screwed, Tony whispered. Maybe not, Brad said slowly. She could have reported us immediately. She could have had us thrown out of the program, but she didn't. She gave us a chance to learn from our mistake, Jake realized. The question is, what do we do with that chance? That afternoon, Jake made a decision that would require more courage than the morning's failed intimidation attempt. He approached Maya during a break in weapons training. She was field stripping an M4 rifle with practiced efficiency, her movements smooth and automatic. She didn't look up when Jake approached, but he knew she was aware of his presence. Ma'am, he said formally, could I speak with you for a moment? Maya finished reassembling her weapon before looking up at him. What can I do for you, Morrison? The fact that she knew his name without him having introduced himself confirmed what Jake already suspected. Maya knew everything about every recruit in their training company. I wanted to apologize for this morning, he said, and to thank you. Apologize for what exactly? Maya asked. Jake took a deep breath. For attempting to intimidate you, for assuming you didn't belong here, for thinking that size and strength were the only qualifications that mattered. Maya nodded slightly. And thank me for what? For teaching us something we needed to learn, and for giving us a chance to prove we could learn from it. Maya set her rifle down and looked at Jake directly. What makes you think you've learned anything? The question caught Jake off guard. We realize now that we made assumptions about you based on your appearance. That was wrong. That's a start, Maya said. But understanding you made a mistake isn't the same as changing the thinking that led to the mistake. Are you going to treat the next small woman you meet with the same lack of respect? Jake considered the question seriously. No, I'm going to judge people based on their actions and qualifications, not their appearance. And if you meet a recruit who's struggling with the physical demands of training, I'll offer to help instead of assuming they don't belong here. Maya almost smiled. Better. What about Ricci and Coleman? Have they had the same revelations? We've been talking. I think we all understand that we have some attitudes that need adjusting. Attitudes, Maya repeated. That's an interesting word choice. What specific attitudes are you referring to? Jake knew he was being tested, and he appreciated the opportunity to demonstrate his understanding. The attitude that physical size determines combat effectiveness. The attitude that women are inherently less capable than men. The attitude that intimidation is an acceptable way to resolve conflicts. Maya picked up her rifle again, checking the sight alignment with professional precision. Those are good insights, Morrison. The question is whether you can translate those insights into better behavior going forward. How do we prove that to you? Jake asked. You don't prove it to me, Maya replied. You prove it to yourselves and to your fellow recruits. Every interaction you have from this point forward is an opportunity to demonstrate whether you've actually learned something or just said the right words to avoid consequences. Jake nodded, understanding the challenge she was presenting. Can I ask you something? You can ask. Are you going to recommend us for advanced training? Maya looked at him for a long moment. What makes you think I have that kind of influence? Lieutenant Commander Hayes said we were being evaluated by a specialist from Naval Special Warfare Command. Your skills, your knowledge, your calm under pressure, it all adds up. And if I am that evaluator? Jake straightened slightly, his military bearing becoming more pronounced. Then I hope you'll consider our ability to recognize our mistakes and learn from them when you make your assessment. Maya slung her rifle over her shoulder and prepared to return to training. I'll consider everything I observe, Morrison. The good and the bad. The question is, what am I going to observe from here on out? As she walked away, Jake realized that his conversation with Maya had been another test. She wanted to see if he could acknowledge responsibility for his actions without making excuses, and whether he understood the broader implications of his behavior. More importantly, she had given him hope. She was willing to evaluate him based on his future actions, not just his past mistakes. Jake returned to where Tony and Brad were waiting. Their faces showed the same mixture of anxiety and determination he was feeling. What did she say? Tony asked. She said we have a chance to prove we've learned something, Jake replied. Starting right now. The three men looked across the training field to where Maya was rejoining her squad for the afternoon exercises. She moved among the other recruits with the same quiet competence she had shown from the beginning, but now they understood what they were really seeing. They were watching a professional warrior who had chosen to give them a second chance. The question was whether they were worthy of it. The final week of training arrived with an unexpected challenge. Lieutenant Commander Hayes gathered the entire company in the main briefing room, his expression more serious than usual. Your final evaluation will be a 3-day field exercise, he announced. You'll be divided into teams of 6 and tasked with completing a series of objectives in a simulated combat environment. Maya Chen sat in the back row, taking notes like any other recruit. But Jake Morrison and his friends now understood she was documenting everything for her official report. Each team will face scenarios designed to test leadership, tactical thinking, physical endurance, and team cohesion, Hayes continued. Your performance during this exercise will determine your final training scores and recommendations for advanced assignments. Jake felt his heart rate increase. This was their chance to prove they had learned from their encounter with Maya. But it was also their final test before she submitted her evaluation report. Team assignments have been made randomly, Hayes said, holding up a clipboard. When I call your name, move to your designated area. Jake held his breath as names were called. Tony Ricci was assigned to Team Delta. Brad Coleman went to Team Charlie. Jake waited anxiously as more names were called. Team Alpha: Morrison, Chen, Rodriguez, Peterson, Williams, Jackson. Jake's stomach dropped. He had been placed on the same team as Maya. The woman they had tried to intimidate would now be evaluating his performance as a team member and potential leader. As the recruits moved to their team areas, Jake caught Maya's eye. Her expression was unreadable, but she gave him a slight nod that might have been acknowledgement or encouragement. Team Alpha gathered in a corner of the briefing room. Besides Jake and Maya, the team included Rodriguez, a quick-thinking communications specialist from California, Peterson, the skinny kid from Ohio who always asked too many questions, Williams, a steady performer from North Carolina, and Jackson, a former EMT from Florida. "Okay, team," Jake said, trying to establish leadership. "We should probably—" "Hold on," interrupted Peterson. "Shouldn't we elect a team leader first? I mean, just because Morrison spoke first doesn't mean—" "I nominate Chen," Rodriguez said suddenly. Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Why?" "Because she's got the most combat experience," Rodriguez replied. 2 deployments, Bronze Star, Purple Hearts. If we're going into a simulated combat situation, I want the most qualified person making decisions. Peterson nodded agreement. "Makes sense to me." Williams and Jackson also voiced their support for Maya as team leader. Jake found himself in the uncomfortable position of being the only team member not ready to hand command over to the woman he had tried to intimidate just days before. Maya watched the discussion without speaking, her face neutral. She was letting them work through the decision process without interference. "Morrison?" Rodriguez asked. "What do you think?" Jake looked at Maya, then at his teammates. This was a moment of truth. He could insist on leading the team himself, drawing on his college football experience and natural size advantage, or he could demonstrate that he truly understood the lessons Maya had taught him. "Chen should lead," he said firmly. "She's the most qualified." Maya nodded acceptance. "All right. Let's review our mission parameters and develop a tactical plan." The field exercise began at dawn the next morning. Team Alpha was transported by truck to a wooded training area 30 miles from the base. Their first objective was to locate and secure a simulated weapons cache while avoiding enemy patrols. Maya proved to be an exceptional leader. She listened to input from all team members, assigned tasks based on individual strengths, and made decisions quickly when time was critical. "Rodriguez, I need you on comms with base," she instructed. "Peterson, you're our navigator. Williams and Jackson, you'll handle security while we search for the cache. Morrison, you're with me on point." Jake was surprised to be assigned as Maya's partner for the most dangerous job. Moving on point meant they would be the first to encounter any threats. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly as they prepared to move out. "Why wouldn't I be?" Maya replied. "After what happened earlier this week." Maya shouldered her pack and checked her weapon. "Morrison, if I thought you were incompetent or untrustworthy, you wouldn't be on this team at all. I'm putting you on point because you're big enough to handle yourself in a fight and smart enough to recognize threats before they become problems." Her confidence in him was unexpected and motivating. Jake nodded and took his position at the front of the team formation. They moved through the forest using hand signals and tactical spacing Maya had taught them during pre-mission planning. Jake found himself appreciating her leadership style. She was decisive but not domineering, confident but not arrogant. 2 hours into the exercise, they encountered their first challenge. Rodriguez spotted what appeared to be an enemy patrol through his binoculars. "3 hostiles 50 meters north," he whispered into his radio. "Looks like they're guarding the path to our objective." Maya called the team together for a quick planning session. "Options? We could circle around," Peterson suggested. "Avoid contact entirely." "That would add 2 hours to our timeline," Williams pointed out. "We might not reach the cache before the exercise deadline." "What about a direct assault?" Jackson asked. 6 against 3 should be good odds, Jake added. Maya considered their suggestions. "Morrison, what do you think?" Jake was surprised to be asked for his tactical opinion. "I think we should get closer first, confirm the number of hostiles and their positions, then decide whether to engage or bypass." "Good thinking," Maya agreed. "Peterson and Williams, Establish an observation post here. Rodriguez, maintain comms with base and the other teams. Jackson, you're our medic. Stay with the wounded if things go bad. Morrison, we'll do a reconnaissance approach. Jake and Maya moved carefully through the underbrush, using trees and fallen logs for concealment. As they got closer to the enemy position, Jake began to see the tactical situation more clearly. "There's actually 4 of them, not 3, he whispered. "One's in a concealed position on the left flank." Maya nodded approvingly. "What else do you see?" Jake studied the area for several more minutes. "They're positioned to cover the direct approach to the cache, but their rear is vulnerable. If we could get behind them—" "How?" Jake traced a path with his finger. "There's a dry stream bed that runs behind their position. We could use it for concealed movement." "Risky," Maya observed. "If they spot us in the stream bed, we'd have no cover." "True. But if we succeed, we could capture the cache without a direct assault. Fewer casualties, faster completion." Maya smiled slightly. "You're thinking like a tactician, Morrison. Let's do it." They returned to brief the team on the plan. The flanking maneuver would require precise timing and coordination, but it offered the best chance of mission success. The plan worked perfectly. While Maya and Jake approached from the rear, Rodriguez created a distraction that drew the enemy patrol's attention. Peterson and Williams provided overwatch, and Jackson stood ready with medical support if needed. Maya and Jake reached the weapons cache without firing a shot. The enemy patrol, realizing they had been outmaneuvered, surrendered according to exercise rules. "Objective 1 complete," Rodriguez reported to base. "Cache secured. No casualties." As they prepared to move to their second objective, Maya pulled Jake aside. "Nice work on the tactical planning," she said. "You saw possibilities I might have missed." Jake felt a surge of pride, but also curiosity. "Really? I figured someone with your background would have spotted that approach immediately." "Experience can sometimes make you overcautious," Maya admitted. "I was thinking about all the ways a flanking maneuver could go wrong. You were thinking about how to make it go right. Sometimes fresh perspective is valuable." Their second objective was a rescue mission. They had to locate and extract a simulated downed pilot while avoiding enemy search teams. This challenge required different skills: stealth, medical knowledge, and careful movement under pressure. Maya assigned Jackson to take the lead, drawing on his EMT background for the medical aspects of the mission. Jake found himself in a supporting role, helping to carry the wounded pilot, while Maya and the others provided security. The exercise continued through the day and into the night. Each challenge tested different aspects of their training and teamwork. Maya rotated leadership responsibilities, giving each team member a chance to make critical decisions. During the overnight phase, while they were supposed to maintain a defensive position, Jake found himself on guard duty with Maya during the early morning hours. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly, careful not to wake their sleeping teammates. "Shoot. That first morning, when we cornered you in the equipment shed, you could have reported us immediately and had us thrown out of the program. Why didn't you?" Maya was quiet for a long moment, scanning the tree line for threats. "What do you think?" "I think you saw potential in us. Maybe you recognized that our problem was ignorance and bad attitude, not fundamental character flaws." "That's part of it," Maya agreed. "But there's more." "What?" "I've worked with a lot of special operations teams over the years. The best ones aren't necessarily made up of perfect people. They're made up of people who can recognize their mistakes, learn from them, and become better." She adjusted her position behind their improvised fortification. "The 3 of you made a serious error in judgment. But when you realized what you'd done, you didn't make excuses or blame others. You took responsibility and started working to improve yourselves. So we passed some kind of test?" "You passed the first test," Maya corrected, "proving you could handle failure and rejection constructively. Now you're taking the second test, proving you can work effectively with people you previously underestimated or disrespected. Jake considered this. And if we pass the second test? Then maybe you're ready for the challenges that come with advanced training. Special operations work isn't just about physical ability or tactical skill. It's about being able to work with anyone, trust your teammates completely, and put mission success above personal ego. As dawn broke over their defensive position, Jake realized that the entire field exercise had been designed as more than just a training evaluation. It was a character assessment, a way of determining whether recruits could function effectively under stress while maintaining good judgment and teamwork. The final challenge came on the third day. Team Alpha was tasked with a complex mission that required them to infiltrate an enemy compound, gather intelligence, and extract without detection. It was the most difficult scenario they had faced. Maya assigned Jake as the overall mission commander, with herself serving as his tactical advisor. It was both an honor and a test. Could he lead effectively when his most experienced team member was watching and evaluating his every decision? "Why are you giving me command?" Jake asked as they planned their approach. "Because leadership isn't about being the most qualified person on the team," Maya replied. "It's about being able to use everyone's qualifications effectively. You've shown good tactical thinking and the ability to listen to your teammates. Let's see if you can put it all together under pressure." The infiltration mission required careful coordination and split-second timing. Jake found himself drawing on everything he had learned, not just during the formal training program, but also from observing Maya's leadership style over the past 3 days. He assigned Maya and Rodriguez to handle the actual intelligence gathering, using Maya's special operations experience and Rodriguez's technical skills. Peterson and Williams created diversions to keep enemy attention focused away from the compound. Jackson provided security and medical support from an overwatch position. Jake coordinated the entire operation, making real-time decisions as circumstances changed and new information became available. When enemy patrols adjusted their routes unexpectedly, Jake had to quickly modify the extraction plan. When Peterson's diversion was discovered earlier than anticipated, Jake had to accelerate the timeline while ensuring everyone could still reach the extraction point safely. The mission succeeded with time to spare. As Team Alpha reached their extraction point, Jake felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything he had experienced during his college football career. "Outstanding work, team," Maya said as they prepared for helicopter pickup. "That was textbook special operations execution." As they flew back to base, Jake reflected on how much had changed in just 1 week. He had started the training program thinking he understood what military service was about. Now he realized he had known almost nothing. Back at the base, Lieutenant Commander Hayes debriefed each team separately. When Team Alpha's turn came, Hayes asked for individual assessments of team performance. Chen demonstrated exceptional leadership capabilities, Jake reported when asked for his evaluation. She made effective use of every team member's strengths and maintained excellent tactical awareness throughout the exercise. When Hayes asked Maya for her assessment, she looked directly at Jake. Morrison showed significant growth as a leader and team member. He overcame initial preconceptions and demonstrated the ability to adapt his thinking based on new information and changing circumstances. After the debriefing, Jake walked with Maya toward the barracks. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now I finish my report and submit it to Naval Special Warfare Command," Maya replied. "Recommendations will be made about which recruits should be considered for advanced training opportunities." "And?" Maya stopped walking and turned to face him. "Morrison, I'm going to be honest with you. A week ago, I was prepared to recommend that you and your friends be dropped from this program. Your behavior in the equipment shed demonstrated exactly the kind of attitude problems that get people killed in special operations." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "And now? Now, I'm recommending all three of you for pre-screening for special operations training. Not because you're perfect, but because you've proven you can learn from your mistakes and grow from the experience. Jake felt a surge of relief and gratitude. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Maya said. If you get selected for advanced training, the real challenges haven't even started. What you've experienced here is just the beginning. I understand, Maya smiled. I think you're starting too. There's one more thing you should know. What's that? Tony Ricci's team leader recommended him for advanced communications training. Brad Coleman's team leader noted his tactical planning abilities and recommended him for intelligence specialist training. All three of you exceeded expectations once you started focusing on performance instead of politics. Jake felt pride for his friends, but also curiosity about Maya herself. Can I ask what your next assignment is? I'm rotating back to my regular unit, Maya said. This evaluation assignment was a temporary duty. I'll be returning to active special operations in a few weeks. Will we see you again? Maya considered the question. If you make it through pre-screening and get selected for special operations training, there's a possibility our paths might cross again. The special operations community is smaller than you might think. As they reached the barracks, Maya offered Jake her hand. It's been an honor working with you, Morrison. I hope you continue to grow and learn. Jake shook her hand, marveling at the strength in her grip and the confidence in her eyes. Thank you for giving us a second chance. I didn't give you anything, Maya replied. You earned it. That evening, Jake met with Tony and Brad to share what he had learned about their evaluations. All three had been recommended for advanced training opportunities based on their performance during the field exercise. So what Maya told us about proving ourselves through our actions, Tony said. She was serious about that. Dead serious, Jake agreed. Our team leaders were watching everything we did for 3 days straight. How we worked with other people, how we handled stress, how we reacted when things didn't go according to plan. Brad touched his nose, which had finally healed from Maya's knee strike. I keep thinking about that first morning. What would have happened if we had just introduced ourselves and asked if she wanted to train with us instead of trying to intimidate her? We probably would have learned a lot more, Jake said, and we definitely would have made a better first impression. Tony laughed. Can you imagine if we had known she was evaluating us for special operations selection? We would have been trying to impress her instead of trying to intimidate her. Maybe that's the point, Jake realized. They didn't tell us we were being evaluated because they wanted to see our real character, not how we act when we know we're being tested. Over the following weeks, Jake received official notification that he had been selected for Navy SEAL pre-screening. Tony was accepted for advanced communications training with the possibility of special operations assignment later. Brad was selected for intelligence specialist training with naval special warfare. All three men had achieved more than they had imagined possible when they first arrived at the training base. But more importantly, they had learned lessons about leadership, respect, and teamwork that would serve them throughout their military careers. 6 months later, Jake was deep in SEAL training when he encountered a familiar face. Maya Chen walked into his advanced combat tactics class, wearing the uniform of a SEAL instructor. Good morning, trainees, she said, her voice carrying the same calm authority Jake remembered from their first encounter. I'm Petty Officer Chen, and I'll be your hand-to-hand combat instructor for the next phase of your training. Jake caught her eye and saw the slightest hint of a smile. Some of you may think you already know how to fight, Maya continued, looking directly at Jake. By the end of this course, you'll understand the difference between fighting and winning. As the class began, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. It had started with 3 recruits making a terrible mistake and learning that their assumptions about strength, leadership, and capability were dangerously wrong. Now he was training to become a Navy SEAL under the instruction of the woman who had taught him those lessons. The circle was complete. but Jake knew his education was just beginning. Maya had been right about one thing. The special operations community was smaller than most people realized. And for those who earned their place in it, every encounter was an opportunity to learn, grow, and become better than they had been before. The training ahead would be harder than anything Jake had experienced, but he was ready for it in ways he never would have been if 3 recruits hadn't closed in on a woman who turned out to have SEAL-grade combat skills. Sometimes the best teachers appeared in the most unexpected ways.